Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining us. I had an amazing opportunity to sit down with Sara Brey this last week. Incredible woman, absolutely incredible woman. She was willing to be so vulnerable. We talked about not just motherhood, but relational trauma in motherhood. She talked about how she made it through, her resilience, her ability to forgive, and how important her kids were to her as she went through something so hard, and how she was able to find the light. I can't wait for you guys to hear this. Okay, I want to welcome Sara here with us tonight. We're so excited that you could come. This is the very first time that we have met, so thank you for joining us tonight. I've been really looking forward to our get together and
so have
being
I.
able to talk. So
excited to be here.
Thanks. So I want to start out. Can you explain just a brief intro of you, how many children you have, what stage of life you're in?
Yes, so me and my husband have been married for almost 10 years. That'll be in February next year. And we have 3 kids. So we have our oldest. He is turning 8 in a month. And then we have our second. He is 4. Not turning 4, he just turned 4. And then our third little girl, she is 18 months, and then I'm pregnant with my 4th, and we're having another little girl, so yeah, we're super excited.
That is really fun. Okay, so you're pregnant with your 4th. What made you decide to become a mother?
I always just kind of felt like, it was just always something that I wanted to do. I feel like women, are more naturally nurturing, and like that's kind of just something that most women want, and it was just something I've always pictured myself like having a family, and just seeing my sisters. I come from a big family. I have 5 sisters and 1 brother. Yeah, and I'm number 5 of 7 kids, so seeing all my sisters become moms, and like it just really was like something I've always wanted. And to just build my own little family.
That's so cool. Did you have any like hesitations or anything, or because of the examples you saw, was it like, okay, I'm ready for this?
I don't know if I really had any hesitations. I mean, when you're pregnant with your first and like it's time for like this baby's coming, it's like, oh my gosh, like this is real now. But it's just something I always wanted, and I never really, like when me and Justin first got married, he was like, I don't want kids for like at least 3 years. I want to finish school. And I was like, all right, that's fine. And then we got married, and it was like 3 months after, and he's like, I really want a kid. And I was like, whoa. I was like,
that changed
okay,
fast.
like I guess. And so
what do you think that was within him?
I think he just like, we started this life together, and I think he just really wanted to start building our family, and was like, I just want to see you as a mom, and I want to be a dad. And so
that's beautiful.
We started pretty soon after we got married and had our first, and then we waited. We had a big gap between our first and second, but I think I served in orphanages in Ecuador.
Really?
After I graduated high school for 3 months, and that like being being an aunt on top of that, I think that like just really prepared me to, I don't know, just like want my own kids.
Yes.
Like I was with these little babies like that, nobody wanted, and it was just, their stories were heartbreaking, and I was able to just care for them and have this like close connection and relationship with them for 3 months, and leaving them was like one of the hardest things. I just like bawled and bawled and bawled when it was time to go home.
Whoa.
But
I bet that was such a life building block of your growing up. I mean, that would be an unforgettable experience. How did you decide to do that?
My older sister actually went. She saw it on like the news or something, and was like, Mom, I want to do that. And my mom was like, I don't know what to think about that. I'll send my daughter to a different country.
And was it with like a group though? So you're like,
it was a group called OSO. I actually don't even know if they're around anymore, but I think they are.
Wow. And 3 months, it's not, I think it's great when people can go for a week or 2 weeks and do a humanitarian trip or something, but 3 months, that's a big commitment. That's a big time to go down. And it was specifically at an orphanage, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there were different orphanages that we worked at. The main one was like newborn babies to 2 years, and we were there most of the time. And then once they turn 3, they move to this other one where they're with 3-year-olds to 18-year-olds, you know, and once the 18-year-olds are 18, I guess they like kind of kick them out on the street and good luck.
Goodness.
Like, so it's really heartbreaking to be there and very humbling and just, you know, like just changed my life really. I just like, man, like, yeah, I wanted kids very soon after I got married.
Right.
So,
and being
and
in that experience of just having these children, these babies that have no one, you know, that would you just hold them? Is that like...
yeah, all the time. But there are nuns that worked there at the orphanage, and a lot of them didn't like that you would hold them all the time because then they got used to being held, and
which is
then
what builds attachment.
I know, but then it makes sense because it's like then this person leaves. You know, they built this like relationship with this person, but then they have to go home, and so that attachment's broken, and so it was really hard to not just want to like hold all of them all the time. You know, I would like hug them, and the nuns would come, and I'd be like, oh, I'm not gonna hug you anymore. Like it was really sad.
That is so sad.
Yeah. So you know, I go home and I'm like, I want to adopt all of you.
I was gonna say, is there any adoption agencies that go out from there?
There were actually quite a few that like, so I'd get emails from OSO. They'd do these newsletters and they'd be like, so and so got adopted, and they'd send it out, so quite a few that I was there with like got adopted, and I was like, oh my gosh, like I was like so excited for them.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is a really neat experience.
It was.
It was really neat. Okay, so then you did that, and then you ended up getting married, you have your first baby, and what was that transition like from married with no kids to we have a baby now? How did your life change, do you feel like, and how did you acclimate positively to that change?
I didn't have as hard of a time as Justin did because he's the youngest in his family, and all of his siblings are a lot older than him, and so I don't know, a lot of them were out of state too, and they had their kids, and so he wasn't around his nieces and nephews as much, and so he wasn't really exposed to like babies like I was. And so when we had our first, he was like the first couple of nights, he was like, we made a mistake. Like, what? He's like, what did we do? Like, I'm like,
people trust us with this?
I know. I'm like, it's fine. Like, it's going to be okay. And we didn't know what we were doing. Like, you know, the baby would wake up and both of us were up, like, trying to take care of him.
What do we do?
We're like, one of us needs to be sleeping. Like, this is not smart. We were exhausted.
I 100% believe in that advice right there. I think it's so important when you have that brand new baby, and it's better to have one person pretty sleep deprived than both of you both maxed out sleep deprived.
Yeah, and luckily we figured that out after the first 2 days. We were like, I think one of us needs to sleep, so we took shifts.
Yes, that's
because I wasn't able to breastfeed, just physically, like, wasn't happening, and so I have always bottle fed my babies, and which has been nice because we can take little shifts, and so Justin will wake up and then it'll be my turn, and anyway, he's a night owl anyway, so he was always like, I'll take the first shift, and you can go sleep for the first 5 hours.
You're
and
like, that's
switch.
great.
And I'm like, okay, great. Awesome. So we finally figured it out, but it definitely is, you know, a transition, and like, even with every kid, it's like, oh, I already had a baby, and it's like, oh, I know what to do with my next one, but then your next one comes, and you're like, oh, this one's so different. Like, I don't know what this one needs. Like, trying to figure out, you know, their needs and their cues, and trying to fit this new person into like your life, and it's just, it is a transition, but like, I feel like, you know, you get the hang of it, and it's like, then you don't know what you would do without them. Yeah. It's like, I can't even imagine like you not being in my life.
A part of our family. It's
yeah.
Like, it would be so different.
Yeah.
Wow. That's neat. And I feel like there's a lot of people that wait because they're like, oh, I don't know how, like, I don't know anything about, you know, having kids. And I feel like there's no amount of time that could prepare you to this.
I don't, like, I feel like you could read all the books in the world and talk to as many people as you wanted. And like, every kid comes different, and every experience is different. And, you know, I feel like you can still get advice from people and like whatever, but
But it comes just the experience. It's just raw experience.
You just gotta like jump into it.
Yeah.
And this is,
We're just do it.
Yeah. And you know, a lot of people are like, oh, I'm gonna wait till I'm financially ready or whatever. And I'm like, there's just no right time. There's always gonna be something that stops you and gets in your way from like having kids.
Starting your family. Yeah.
Yeah.
I totally agree. And I feel like there's nothing better to teach than that. Just experience. And there's nothing like holding that baby and going, just telling yourself like, I can do this. I'm the mom and he's the dad and we're going to figure this out and we're a team and we're going to make it happen, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
I do feel like I've seen, my husband gives this analogy where he's like, if you have this couple and they have a baby and he's like, you see there are two things generally happen where you insert a baby and into that, that nucleus of a family, and that it's a newborn phase is a very trying stage just because it requires a lot of lack of sleep.
Yes.
Also one of the most beautiful stages I feel like that you ever have with that child of that newborn, the newborn state. But it can either like go off like an atomic bomb and it can divide a couple, or it can bring a couple even closer together. And I've seen in many relationships that I've seen both ways happen, where it either really strengthens that relationship, or it like if you don't, have it kind of be a team mentality of like, hey, let's switch, or hey, let's do this, then I have seen where it's just really hard for couples. And so I don't know, to make that deliberate effort of like, this is going to be hard. We're on the same team. We can do this. And sometimes, it just is hard. But I feel like if you come together and choose that mentality, it can bring you closer together.
Yes.
I guess what I was trying to say.
For sure. I think a lot of times too, like the women, a lot falls on them because, a lot of women breastfeed and they are the ones that the baby wants and they are the ones usually doing all of the things. And I think a lot of men like really want to help, but they just don't know what they're supposed to be doing.
That is so true.
I think like a lot of women get like frustrated, with their husbands or their partners or whatever, because it's like, you're not helping. And it's like, well, sometimes they feel like they are. And like me and Justin have even had this conversation many times where it's like, I'm doing everything. And he's like, well, I feel like I'm helping, like I'm doing this. And I'm like, you need to be doing more. And he's like, well, you need to tell me. And I'm like, okay. I guess you're right. I do. Like, I need to voice. It's like, I can't read your mind, and we hear that so many times where it's like, a lot of women are just like, well, just read my mind and like, you should know what I need and look around and just like see what needs to be done. And they don't think that way.
No, a lot of times like I'm trying and they just don't see what we see. They don't hear the faucet dripping and leaking. They don't see the mess on the floor. It's just
no. They don't. They don't see that like this child needs a lunch for school. They don't think about that. It's like, okay, like I need you to do this. I need you to do that. Like I just saw a reel on Instagram the other day that was like women need to, and men too, whoever, you just need to like speak your mind and be like, I need you to do this. Like, or not like, would it be okay if you did, like, and I need you.
Yes. And there's a big difference between like, could you maybe sort of kind of, and it's like, we try to be like that, but I think just being willing to just say it out. I heard this thing, it was like, a way to do it is, would you be willing to do this? And so can you, even the difference between words of like, hey, can you take out the trash? It's like, well, yeah, I can do that. Mm-hmm. But it's like, hey, would you be willing to take out the trash? Like, yeah, I'll be willing to do it. Someone equated that to like, asking someone to marry you. And it's like, can you marry me? Versus like, will you marry me? Like,
that's good.
That's true. Like, that's a good point. Like, hey, would you be willing to do this?
That's funny.
Anyway, I just think I'm like, that's a good point. But
that is a good point. Yeah.
Okay, so you have these children. I want to hear more of your journey, your process. Where do you want to go from here? What specifically do you want to talk about tonight that you feel like women out there need to hear?
I actually was thinking about this like the past couple weeks, and like I felt when you actually asked me to like be on the podcast, I was actually going through like a hard time with like motherhood. I was like, I just like don't know if I can do this. Like, is this something that like I can like do? Because I felt so inadequate. And my oldest has been really difficult, like just behavior wise. And me and my husband are just like, we don't know what else to do. So we're just trying to find all these like this information on how to help our child and how to have, you know, like a healthy, happy home. And because the behavior is affecting everyone in our home. And so it's been really difficult.
That is really hard.
And we know that, you know, it's not his fault. Like there's just things I feel like he doesn't understand how to like control his emotions and things. And so it's been really hard. The past, like this summer was like so difficult. I don't know why. I just felt like I was just like, probably because I'm pregnant too. So that doesn't help that like my emotions are like all over the place. But, just wanting this like relationship with my son, and I'm like, man, I just feel like we are like butting heads. Like me and him are just at each other's throats like all the time. And I'm like, I don't know what else to do. Like he's constantly fighting with me and with others. And anyway,
and that dynamic can just like snowball in a family. I feel like, you know, you have like one type of energy that can then just spread, and then that energy spreads.
Yes.
You know, it's hard. I think in any dynamic or any family, there's challenges, but I do believe like having a kid with behavioral concerns and hardships, it does just like exacerbate a lot of hard things. So I've been there, and it is hard. And I'm so proud of you for like going through that and being pregnant. Like that's a big deal. Like what you're going through it's hard, and it's amazing. Like you're doing it.
Yeah. Like, I it's like, should I go back to work? Like, but then I'm like, no, like I want to be with my kids, you know, and that's something that I chose. Like I want to be there. Like I know I need to be home with them. And you know, I know not every woman feels that. Like some women really want to work, and like that's fine. But like for me, I just wanted to be home with them because I just feel like I need to be. But then it's like, I don't want to be here with you. Like honestly, like that. Sometimes I'm like, I think a lot of women feel this way, and they feel so guilty thinking it.
And then all of a sudden they start shaming themselves.
Yeah, it's like I don't want to be with my kid. Like I don't want to be around you. I don't really want to be with you right now. Like you're annoying me
and space.
Yeah, and I think it's okay. Those feelings are like very normal and natural, and I think we need to normalize those a little more. And
it's okay to give ourselves that space.
Yes.
There's been times where instead of putting like the kids in timeout, it's like, you know what? I'm gonna have a timeout. I'm just gonna go in my room and I'm gonna do the deep breathing, and I'm gonna calm down because I just need that space. That just, you know, because otherwise, it can get really hard.
It can. Yeah, you get like kids touching you all the time and climbing on you, and you're just like, I'm at my max. I need to just like, you know, remove myself from all of you for a little bit. And you know, I think that's like okay, and especially for kids to see that.
And to see a mother self-regulate.
Yes.
And say, oh, this is what it looks like.
Yeah. It's like, oh, like she needs to have some alone time to like calm down.
Yeah.
And so she doesn't blow up on us, whatever, you know. Like, but yeah, this summer has just been really challenging. But I feel like this sounds so terrible, but since school started, I'm like, okay, like I can do this now. But I think the space that me and my son have, like that time where he's at school, I'm so excited for him to come home, and then we get to see each other, and like I think we just kind of needed that. I think the summer was just like, we are spending way too much time together. I don't know. It's been challenging.
Yeah, summer. And I feel like summers are especially hard because there's not normally as obviously consistent routines like there are in school. Like, you know, it's like and then most of the time summers it's like you lots of times we're doing stuff later than normal. This and like their whole schedules are just like, I don't know, at least for us, it's like any type of schedule just kind of goes poof, when summer hits.
Yep. I think that definitely played a part in it for sure. No, like, bedtimes are later and you're just doing activities and whatever. It's like, no schedule. Yeah. So having like a schedule has definitely helped. But I think, I see so many things on Instagram and reels and whatever where it's just like, oh, like you need to enjoy every moment of motherhood and honestly sometimes makes me feel like so guilty where I'm like, I don't enjoy every moment.
And that's okay. In any endeavor, when I see things like that, because I've seen things like that too, and it's like, oh, that's a nice premise, but it's like, here's the reality. In anything worth having in life, it comes with great effort, and great effort normally doesn't have lollipops and rainbows the whole time. It just doesn't. Like, it's like, and that's what I've realized. Like, if you said that about like any career, it's like, okay, go into this really intense career and love every single waking moment that you ever have with that career. It's like, no, there's gonna be times where you are exhausted and you're up late and you're sending emails and you're putting together projects and it is hard and sometimes really, really, really not fun, but we still do it. It's like, and so I think that's good to acknowledge where it's like, guess what? It's okay if there's times where it's like, this is hard and I'm not enjoying every minute of it because I don't think that's what it's meant to be.
Right.
That's what life is. It's like you have the ups and the downs, you have that contrast, and that contrast it is what brings the depth and the beauty to relationships.
Yes.
I believe. So.
Yeah, I'm so thankful for my mom because she's someone I can go to and just be like, Mom, being a mom is hard. She's like, I know. And I'm like, I just like don't feel like I'm doing a good job. And she's, then she's there to just be like, you are. Like, you're doing a great job. Because she's like, I watch you and I see you. And she like lifts me up and I'm like, okay. Like,
don't we need to like one of a person like that in every mother's life?
Yes.
Like that's like, I just feel like those are the people that keep you going. It keep you going in a way that it's like, okay, they breathe that hope back into you. Mm-hmm. And I feel like I wish every person that was a mom had someone like that in their life.
I feel like even when I'm out in public and I see a mom just having a kid that's having like a meltdown, in the store or whatever, there have been times where like I just have been like, it's okay. You're doing a really good job. And you can just see in their face like, oh, thank you. Like I've only done like a few times because sometimes I'm like, should I like say something? I don't know. But we were just at this monster truck show. We took our boys to this monster truck show because awesome. My 4-year-old has been like dying to go see the monster trucks.
That's so cute.
And it was up in the Maverick Center last Saturday, and it was funny not funny, but it kind of was to like see other parents just really struggling with their kids. Like
and then you look at them, you're like, hey, I've been there.
Yeah.
I've done that too.
Yes, it's like so relatable, and it kind of makes like you feel a little bit better because you're like, okay, I'm not alone.
Yes.
Every parent
is
like going through the same
yes.
thing I am. Like
yes.
even though when you're in your own home by yourself with your kids, like you're like, I am alone. No one else feels what I'm feeling. Like I feel like no one gets it, But there was this guy. I was in line getting my kids a slushie, and there was this guy. He had a Coke in one hand and a bag of popcorn in his other hand, and she was probably like 3. She was running around screaming. They had like bags of cotton candy hanging on the side of the stall, and she kept ripping them off, and she was like, I want the cotton candy. And he was like, we have to get in line and buy it. And she was like, no, like screaming. And she pulled like 3 of them off. She kept going back and pulling them off, and he was just running around chasing her, trying to get her. Yeah, and I was just like, oh, you poor guy. But I was like, doing a good job.
Like, you go, Dad. Yeah, you go. Wouldn't it be amazing if like people felt that others gave them grace like that? Like, yes. Hey, dude, you got this. Yeah. Like, you got this. Instead of like the like, oh wow, like she's losing it. It's like, guess what? Every kid loses it.
Yeah.
Every kid has a tantrum.
Yep.
Every kid will like completely have the lid blown off at some point. And that may be in public and that may not, but it happens either way,
Yeah, instead of, seeing a mom with like screaming kids being like, oh, you have your hands full. It's like,
oh,
don't
and
you
is
think
that
they
not the
know
default?
that?
That is the default answer.
Yeah.
That is the default. Like, oh, this mama's got her hands full. And I finally, I got this from my sister because I have a number of sisters too. And she's like, you know what? I hate that comment because it's always like, oh, you did you bite off more than you can handle? It's like, these are kids. Like, they're kids, you know?
Yeah.
And so her response back, which I've used, is, you know, when people are like, oh, you got your hands full. And she would say, she has 5 boys.
Ooh.
This mama is amazing. She's amazing.
5 boys.
And she's like, oh, you've got your hands. She lives in Seattle. And, you know, people say like, oh, you've got your hands full. She's like, yep, full of love. She's like, I'm like, oh, I love that. Yeah. Where it's like, yeah, and I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah.
Like, is it going to be hard? Yeah. Are there times that it's going to be stressful in the situation? Yeah. But would I have it any other way? No. You know?
And it's like, obviously I do. Like, maybe say something, you know, a little more encouraging.
Yeah. Say something encouraging. Or like, help, you know, like there's been times and, you know, I've been trying to teach my daughter, like, notice other people instead of just like, you know, we're in our own worlds. I'm like, notice if there's someone struggling, notice if they need help, awesome. You know, and there's times now that like I don't notice and she notices. She's like, Mom, that woman like can't get her groceries in her bag because she's like holding baby. And I'm like, do something. She's like, okay, so she'll go up and like help her. You know, she was helping her, and I was like, good for you. Like, you noticed and you did something. Where to me it was just like I'm busy doing my own thing. So you know, nice. So I think if we notice people's those like moments of struggle and like said something positive, said something encouraging, said something or did something to, you know, like help. I think that's because we all feel like that. And in those moments, it's like, this is really embarrassing. And it used to get to me a lot more than it did now. Like, I remember my first and like tantruming in the grocery store, and my heart rate was just like,
oh my gosh.
Like,
you're like sweating. Getting like,
look at me, this is so embarrassing. And you don't give them the candy that they want, because then you're just teaching them that if they can scream loud enough and tantrum hard enough, that they'll get what they want. So it's like, no, I'm not going to give in. But it's hard to not then feel incredibly judged in that moment. And now with my 4th, I'm like, you're fine. Just take some deep breaths. And I just, you know, breathe. You know, the kid's
you're
fine.
Just going around with a screaming child. And everyone's just like...
And that's okay. And I realized there was a time I was on an airplane. And it was a very long flight. It was over 8 hours, and I had just 2 really littles at the time, and one of my daughter was just not having it. It was like, I'm done. I don't want to be here anymore. I don't want to be confined here anymore. And anyway, she just started like screaming, and airplanes are tricky because you can't escape. You can't go anywhere else, and you feel bad. You feel bad because you can, you know, you're making this harder for everybody else. And the sweet woman leaned back, and I was kind of nervous because I didn't know what she was going to say. You know, it was this immediately like, I want to apologize. And she just put her hand on my knee, and she's like, we have all been through this. Oh, it's okay. I was like, thank you.
Like,
thank you for just acknowledging, like, this is my heart, but anyone that has brought a kid on an airplane has been through that. Probably at some point of traveling has been through that, where you cannot control a child and physically force them to stop crying. You can't, you know. And it was just so sweet. Yeah, in those moments, be like, it's okay. We've all been through this. I'm like, thank you for that compassion.
Yeah,
that I needed.
My oldest sister, she'd probably hate that I say this, but my oldest sister, she's 40 now, and she just had her first. She was actually told she wasn't able to have kids for like a long time.
Wow.
And then she had this miracle baby, and he's here, and he's just the cutest.
That's incredible. And can I ask, like, in vitro, like, how did they get that to happen?
She just like got pregnant.
On her own?
Yeah, on her own.
40 years old?
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, she was 39.
She was 39 when she got,
I'm like, is it like miracle baby?
That's incredible.
And anyway, before she had kids, she would always see kids screaming in, you know, the store or whatever. And her thoughts were always like, oh, just like, quiet your kid. Like, take him out of the store. Like, yeah. And now she's like, I get it. I'm like, yeah, you do. You do get it. It's, like, you can't just like, you know, like, be quiet. Like, obviously that does not work. Like, no, they're not going to listen to it.
That is so, and I think there is that, like, unless you've been through it, you don't have that understanding, you know. And I remember that. I remember when I'm the youngest in my family, and I remember being like, I will never do that with my kids. Like, I'll never do that. And then you're in the boat, you're like, oh, this is why they did that. This is why. You're like, oh, I get it now.
Exactly. That's why, I really try to just look at other parents and like not judge, because it's like you don't doing know
your best.
Yeah.
With the circumstances that you've been given, you are doing your best.
Yeah. And if you're at a park and like there you see a mom that's like a little more stern with her kid or whatever, instead of being like, oh my gosh, how dare she talk to her kid like that? Like, maybe this child has been hard all day and her patience is gone. Like, it's just like...
And maybe that kid needs that strictness, where it's like, my sister that has 5 boys, she was helping another mom, and it was just one boy that came over and she was babysitting him, and she's like, man, kids come in so many different temperaments. Mm-hmm. And she's like, this one boy was harder than all 5 of my boys combined. Ooh. That's when it's like, you just have to realize like every kid is so different, which means parenting would look really different based on different kids, So,
exactly. Yeah. I mean, even from like my kids, like my 2 boys are so different. My oldest is very short-tempered and everything bugs him and he is a fireball. And my second is... his love language is like physical touch. Like if he's upset, he wants a hug. If like he just always wants to be held and hugged and cuddled and like that's what he loves. And he, he's 4, so he also has tantrums and stuff too. But it's my oldest wasn't ever really like that, and it's very.
So different. Like
their personalities are very different.
Yeah. And what works for one kid doesn't work for the other kid. And that's that is that like journey of figuring it out. And it's so neat how much as parents that we learn. Like if we just had if every one of our kids were the same, would we really like grow in dynamic ways as parents?
No, and our world would be boring. Yeah. Right? Everyone's like this cookie cutter
Here's the cookie cutter of everything. And yet like we have such different personalities, and that comes with being able to parent so differently, and I think that stretches us and grows us in different ways. That I think is important as humans, that we are able to like dynamically change in that regard to serve someone else's needs completely differently. So you're raising this beautiful family, and obviously there's goods and bads and struggles and beautiful times. Can you tell me times where it's been hard, times that like that I just want women to hear from you, where that they're not alone and maybe going through lots of different trials in life. And we had a mama a little while ago talking about physical trials, where she's gone through a lot of health trials as a mother. And I'd just love to hear your story and what you've been through in your journey of motherhood.
Yeah. So a little bit of background, I guess. Me and my husband are part of the LDS church, so the Latter-day Saint church, and part of that is living certain commandments and things, and after a year of marriage he told me that he was like done with that. He didn't want to be a part of that, which was hard because he was
done with his religion.
Yes,
he was
with
like,
his religion.
He's like, I don't want to be a part of this religion anymore. Okay.
Right. Which was really hard for me because, we believe in our church that the family unit is so important. It's basically like our main purpose here on earth is to just be with our families and grow our families strong so that when we die, we can be with each other forever. And so the thoughts of that was just like, oh my gosh, like my family is like, we're not going to be together. Like, all those thoughts are just like, we're living these 2 different lives now. Like our paths are separating and our focus is not aligned. And so it kind of like really freaked me out, and I was really mad at him for a long time.
Well, and probably because you based your marriage, where it was like, hey, we both have the same religion and the same faith and the same, like you went into your marriage, with that alignment, and then all of a sudden that non-alignment, I mean, that would have been really, really, really difficult. Yeah. When he told you, did you notice that it was like, oh, he's like changing, or was it just like night and day, like, hey,
It was kind of like night and day. It was like, wow. What? Like, it was, it kind of like hit me, like, blindsided me. And I was just like, okay, Like, I didn't really see that coming. So yeah, I was mad because then he didn't want to go to church with me, and I had this new baby, and I was like, I have to go to church by myself, and like everyone's gonna stare at me and like wonder where my husband is, and I was like, I don't know if I can do it. And so I was really nervous about it. And anyway, he was inactive for 6 years of our marriage.
Wow.
And you know, I got to the point where I just like accepted him for who he was and was just like, okay, like I'm still gonna love him, and like we're still gonna build this life together, and it's gonna be fine. Like, he wasn't hating on the church at all. Wasn't like mad that I was still wanting to be a part of it and raise our kids in it.
That's a big deal that you were able to still be able to live both of your lives and do it in an amount of harmony like that. That's incredible that you guys were able to find that balance still.
We did, for the most part. It was still, you know, very difficult because we weren't 100% aligned in our purpose and faith and stuff. And so he has always been very into the gym, and which is totally fine. Like working out. Yeah, working out and lifting weights. And he really has always wanted to do like a bodybuilding competition. That's just something he's always wanted to do.
Well, that's fun.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, great. And I think the gym is like a really obviously great place to go and take care of yourself physically, but it's also like a place just of like not good things that go on there, of people flirting with each other and hooking up, and so it's just a very kind of self-centered environment, because people, you know, they look good, and so they're like, oh, like yeah. And not to hate on anybody in the gym, because I go to the gym and I like it because it makes me feel good that I'm, you know, taking care of myself. But
there are those like potential risks
yes.
that you were seeing. Okay.
Yeah, and by the way, my husband wouldn't care of anything I said. Okay. He's like, just say whatever you want.
Oh,
but he got into that like whole kind of, his looks were really important, and he really liked that other girls at the gym were kind of checking him out, and it made him feel good. And so, you know, later down the line, he had an affair, and we had our 2 boys, and I found out, and I kicked him out of our house. Just was like, I'm done. Like, get out.
Sarah, that must have been so
it was devastating, because I kind of felt like something was going on. He told me that he was like, I feel like this girl at school was talking to me, because he was still in school, and he was like, I'm gonna talk to like a marriage counselor, and if that's okay. And I was like, sure. I didn't know the extent of it though, until I had this feeling to like look at his computer. And so I looked at his computer and found all the text messages, and I was just like, oh my gosh.
Is that how you found out?
Yeah, that's how I found out. So I kicked him out, and you know, like when he talks about this story, he's like, I didn't care. He's like, I was in such a self-centered mindset at that point. I did not care that you kicked me out of the house. Wow. You're just like, whatever.
Really?
And
even like with his connection with the kids and everything.
I mean, obviously he was like, you know, missed the kids and like was really sad about all of that. He just his mindset was not on our family.
Wow.
And for a long time, the gym came first all the time, no matter what.
Whoa.
If we were doing something with the family, he didn't go to the gym yet, the gym came first. And so he missed a lot of family time. And so like that was all like really hard.
That is really hard.
Yeah, but I mean, he was always like a good dad. Like our kids, like he always, you know, spent time with our kids and stuff. But our relationship, it was hard because he came first. Everything about him. And so I moved in with my parents, with my 2 boys, and I was currently teaching at the time. And we were separated for 6 months. Wow. And I even had our divorce papers like signed. Like I was like, we're divorced. Like I'm done with you. We're getting divorced. Like you've been like, I've been through this trauma, and
this huge trauma, and especially you being the one to find out.
Yeah.
And especially that it wasn't him that came and said, hey, you know, here's this, like you finding out. And then did you then just tell him like, hey, I found this? Like,
oh yeah, what happened is I read through the text messages and he was in the shower, and as soon as he got out, I actually went in and just slapped him. And I walked out and he was like, what the heck? And I was like, who is this? And I pointed to the messages, and so he told me, and I was like, get out.
oh.
And he was like, okay. He's like, where do I go? I was like, I don't care.
Yeah. You're
Sorry.
like, not here.
Yeah. So I was like, get out.
Oh.
And so, you know, as we were separated, he just spiraled. Like he, you know, got into like drugs and drinking and women, and just like really spiraled. And I was doing the opposite, where I was working on like my faith and strengthening myself and taking care of myself and trying to heal the wounds. And, you know, I found this amazing therapist who helped me, and
really
just kind of doing things for me, because I'm like, I don't feel like I've ever been able to like do anything for me. It's always been him. So I'm like, now I get to kind of like figure out what helps me and like what I like and
what you need.
Yeah, which, you know, was great, but at the same time it's like my family's broken. And my husband is going to be my ex-husband, and he doesn't care. And
I bet that was really hard.
Yeah.
And could you sense that it was like there wasn't a care there? Like, could you see that, where it was like, it wasn't like, oh no, let me do something to get you back in. It was just like,
oh yeah,
okay.
no, it was like, okay. I was like, we're gonna get divorced, and he was just kind of like, okay. And so it wasn't any kind of fight for me, which was even harder, you know. It was just like, man, there's like no fight at all. Like there's just nothing, like, and it made me feel like I was nothing.
Oh.
And
that is heartbreaking.
Yeah,
How did you make it through that? Like, who in that moment did you call? Did you rely on? Who did you like?
There were so many people, and I wasn't like super vocal about like what was going on. I kind of just posted on Instagram like quotes that like I liked that were helping me, and I think from that people kind of were like, what's going on? And they saw pictures where Justin wasn't in it, you know, like it was right before Halloween, so I went through all of the, you know, big holidays without him.
Oh.
And so that was hard, because we were trying to figure out like what we do with the kids, and the kids were confused. And my oldest was 5, so he was like,
what's happening?
Where, like, he would ask me all the time, like, where's Dad? And and I would try not to cry in front of him, but sometimes I would, and it just was like, so even talking to him now, he remembers that, and he remembers seeing me cry a lot, and it's like, oh gosh, like,
that is like,
I'm like, I hate that he remembers that and he knows that. And so I had a lot of people in my parents' like community that I grew up with, and you know, a lot of like this woman, she was so amazing. She would send me like every month like a card in the mail. She only lived like down the street. And she'd send it in the mail and was just like, I'm thinking of you, I love you, and like,
what a sweet woman. Not just a text message, like a card.
Like an actual card in the mail.
Wow.
And I actually still have them. But I was like, oh, that was like so sweet. And you know, the bishop of our ward like put together this big basket for Christmas for me with gift cards so I could buy my kids like Christmas gifts. And like, so like people really like just showed so much love. I got text messages from like people from high school that I haven't really talked to in a long time that just reached out. I'm like, you know, it wasn't anything that was like, why are you talking to me? It was just kind of like, oh my gosh, like,
thank you.
They're just like, I was just thinking of you, like, I hope you're okay, you know, things like that. And I'm like, man, like, people just really random people just like were so kind and nice. And obviously my family, you know, number one supporters, were just amazing, helped me with anything. And My parents were amazing, just helping me with my kids, and they'd wake up, and sometimes I didn't even know my kids were awake yet, and I'd go upstairs and my dad was making them waffles and like making them breakfast, and
What
like,
sweethearts.
yeah, I had to have a girl was watching my kids for me so I could work, and so my dad would drop them off for me so I could get to work. And anyway, it just was a lot of people that came together and like
to like rally
really helped
around
me.
you.
Yeah, but I think the hardest time, because during the day, especially when I'm at work, I'm busy. My mind
Your
isn't
mind's
on
something
what's
else.
going on
Right.
in my life. And even when I'm home, I'm busy with my kids, and I put them to bed, and then I have time for myself, whatever I was doing, and then it was time for me to go to bed. And that was the hardest. It was just like I had never experienced panic attacks ever until then, and I just like your body's tensing, and you can't get your breath under control, and you're just like, oh my gosh, your mind is racing, and like just times where I just like bawling. And anyway, it just it was really difficult. And on the flip side, Justin was also going through, I didn't know what he was really going through, because from what I could see, he didn't care.
And you had probably cut off communication.
I mean,
pretty much,
we had to keep talking just because of the kids.
Kids.
Like, are you going to take the kids this day or whatever? And most of the time I can say that I was like very nice to him, but there were some times where my anger got, a hold of me, and I was just like, how could you, or whatever. But
Right.
my parents went to, where'd they go? Guam for like over a month.
Wow.
And it was like during COVID, so they had to like, or I guess after COVID, so they still had to quarantine for like 2 weeks when they got there.
Oh, man.
And then they were there for a month.
Wow. That's impressive.
And, part of the LDS culture is we have temples that we go and worship in. And so they were there actually doing some of the faux painting in the temples before it was opened.
To like work on the temples.
Yeah, so they're
that's
inside doing
neat.
some painting things that my mom knows how to do. And
Wow.
so they were in Guam for a month, and so I was alone
Then you were by
myself.
yourself. When
And
was that? So
this was
things happened in
January.
October. Oh, so that's really soon.
Yeah.
Still.
So this happened. We separated October. Our divorce papers were signed and turned in a week before Christmas.
Oh my goodness.
And Justin at that point was like, I just don't feel like we should turn in our papers. And I'm like, I do. I'm sorry. And he's like, but I don't feel good about it. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I do. And so he was really not wanting me to turn them in. And I was like, I don't understand why.
Was that surprising to you when you're like,
Yeah.
but I feel like you don't have a lot of, like emotional, like you're not really investing, and now you're saying like you don't think this should go through. Was that kind of like surprising to you at all?
It was. I was just kind of like, I don't understand why. What are you wanting to do otherwise? Like,
right.
we're not going to get back together. Like, you're still living this life that I don't want to be a part of. And so I didn't understand why. And a week before Christmas, my family always goes to St. George, and we have 3 days there together and just party and have fun. And while I was there, Justin called me and was like, I don't think I want, nobody wants me here anymore. Like, nobody cares about me. I don't think I want to really like live anymore. And freaked me out. I was just like, what? Like, where are you?
And he's the one calling you.
Yeah.
That still means
And
like he still had such a high trust account with you.
Yeah.
To be the person that he calls saying, I'm kind of done.
Yeah. And I was just like, I'm with my family, so I had to take the call away because I was like starting to cry, because I was like, oh my gosh, like, where are you? Like, I need to tell your parents where you are. Like, I'm obviously not close to come find you. And he was just like, I'm going to go. And he hung up. And I was like, oh my gosh.
Whoa,
like,
that just like gave me chills.
Yeah.
What?
I'm like, my kids could possibly not have a dad anymore. Like, I'm like, he's going to take his life. And I was freaking out. I was texting his family, like, you have to find Justin. Like, I don't know where he is. He just called me. I think he's going to, like, take his life. Like, you have to call him.
Oh my.
And so on his side, hearing what was going on is he was getting text messages and calls, and he was just ignoring all of them. And
He didn't even, it was
no,
just,
he was just like,
he was past feeling, he was.
yeah, he had this picture of our oldest son, and he wrote a note, like a suicide note basically on the back, just saying,
Oh my gosh,
I
this
love
is so
you. I'm so sorry I
sad.
couldn't be here for you. And had a gun next to him, you know, ready to take his life. And his brother-in-law, for some reason, he looked at his text messages, only his, and it was just like, you know, basically, you know, said other things, but basically was just like, to get out of this, you need to forget yourself and go serve. Like, your boys need you.
That's
your
what
family
he
needs
told
you.
him?
Yeah.
Wow.
And
That's
you know,
amazing.
I feel like a lot of people would be like, how dare you say that to me?
Yeah,
Whatever.
in the moment where it's like,
Yeah.
I need, you know, we think like, I need this, I need this, I need this. And he told him the exact opposite.
Yeah.
Like, you need to look beyond yourself.
Yeah, and Justin, that hit him. And he was like, okay, I will. And that was like his turning point. For some reason, that like is what he needed to hear at that moment.
At the lowest
Yeah,
of all possible
you know,
points
not
of his
anything
life.
I said of like, your boys need you. Like, nothing like that was getting to him. It was that from someone that he has always looked up to too. That, like, you know, his oldest sister got married when Justin was 8. Wow. And so Justin never had a brother. He only has sisters. Wow. And so, like, they became brothers.
It was like his brother.
Yeah, so that relationship was very strong until me and Justin got married, and it kind of, like, you know, got weaker for some reason, and so that was always really hard for Justin, that, like, their relationship wasn't as strong. And so I think hearing from him was just like, okay.
Really impactful.
Yeah, and from then he really just, like, did a 180, like, totally flipped his life around and decided he wanted to, you know, come back to church and talk with the bishop and get his life kind of straightened out.
Kind of, like, seriously, like, talk about, like, whoo.
Yeah, so on Christmas Eve, he actually texted me and was like, I want to talk to you. Actually, it was Christmas Day, but it was, like, that night.
Okay.
And he was like, can you come over? I want to talk to you. And I was like, okay. And so I went over, and he was like,
what were you expecting at this point? Were you just kind of like, I have no idea? Did his family tell you, like, he's okay? Or was this just like...
Yeah, I mean, finally, because I was texting him too during that whole time. You know, I was like, what's going on? Where are you? Like, are you okay? And finally he, like, texted me back after, like, hours later. He was like, I'm okay. And I was like, oh my gosh. I was like,
whoa.
Thank you. You know, like, thank goodness he's okay. But, so I went over to his house, and he was living with his parents at this point. And I was just like, what do you need? You know? And he was like, I just want you to know, like, I'm going back to church, and I'm changing my life around, and, like, I would like to get our family back together. And whoa. I was just like...
Did he apologize at this point for anything?
I mean, like, yeah, he's apologized, and... Okay. But, you know, to me, I was just kind of like, no. Yeah. I still was like, no. Like, I don't trust you. I haven't, like, these changes are so brand new. I haven't seen anything if this is going to continue.
Right. Is this like a phase? Is this an actual, like, long-term change?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would totally understand that hesitancy.
Yeah. So I was just like, I'm not ready to let you just back in and be like, great, let's continue life together. Right. And it wasn't until January 1st, so New Year's Day, and Justin was continuing, like, I would love to get back together, our family, like, and I was just like, no. And so January 1st, I was invited by my friend to this manifestation, like, sound bath class, and I was like, this is, like, very out of my comfort zone. I've never done anything like this, but I was like, I'm gonna go.
I've never even heard of that.
Yeah, and I was like, okay, I didn't know what to expect because I'd never done anything like it. So I was like, I'm just going to go. And right before I went in, me and Justin were texting, and he was like, I would like, do you ever see us getting back together? And I said, no, I don't. And this class was like 3 hours long. And so that's where our conversation ended. And I went into this class. And so he's thinking like, there's hope.
Nothing.
Like our family's done.
Oh.
And in this manifestation class, they talked about manifesting things into your life that you want to happen, and using when we wrote these letters to ourselves of what we want for the year and things that we wanted to like happen, and using very positive language when you're writing.
Okay.
And being very specific.
Is it like affirmations kind of a thing? Like
it's just kind of like when I was writing, it was kind of weird. It was like I got this like it was like a vision of like what I wanted. And Justin was in it, and I was like, what the heck?
Interesting.
And I was like, I felt so happy about it and like so good. And I was like, this is so weird. I just told him that like we're not ever gonna get back together. Yeah. And I was like, he really hurt me, like very deeply hurt me.
Yeah.
And broke all trust. And so I'm writing my letter.
Really hard to heal, like that, the depths of where you were at. Like, he went through his depths, but the pain that you went through, like that is the amount of healing and everything that you had to have, gone through at that point.
Yeah.
So you're writing this letter.
Yeah, I'm writing this letter myself, very positive language. And I'm like, I see myself with Justin and our 2 boys, and we have a home, and we have a dog, and we have like all this, stuff, and that I wanted for myself, that like my boys could see, that they would see a strong woman of faith and who relied on God, and that they would see that, their parents were together and loved them. And anyway, so I just wrote this down, and I was
beautiful.
I was like, okay, well, after this class, I texted Justin, I was like, can I come over? I want to read something to you. And he was like, okay. And so I went over and I read him my manifestation, and both of us are just sitting there crying because he was like, you told me, like, no, there was no hope. And so we're both just sitting there crying, and afterwards we're just like so happy and like felt so good about it. And I was like, this is just so weird that this is happening. But I was like, we're going to try this out. But my therapist was like, to see, for anyone to make any kind of behavior changes, they have to make those changes for 90 days for a behavior to actually like change.
Like ingrain kind of a thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's kind of like the science behind it or whatever. And so I was like, okay, it's like, we're going to put that to the test. So I was like, here's these changes you've made. If you can continue showing me these like changes for 90 days,
okay,
then, we can move back in together and like continue our life and whatever. But in the meantime, like, we'll still get together with our kids. And anyway, so he did. He continued showing me, and
he just built that. He kept that trust, and he
even still, we're still going. Obviously, every marriage has like hard things, and you're not exempt from any hardships. We've still had hardships from then to now. But
okay, so 3 months. So you're like, so this is January. You had been separated for 3 months. You're like, hey, kind of like, I'll let you try to prove it.
Yeah, and I'm like, you can tell, like, your words at this point mean absolutely nothing to me. So to sit here and tell me you've changed, no. that's not gonna fly with me. You have to show me these changes, and I have to see them in you. And he did.
And he took that seriously.
Yeah, he did. So,
wow.
Then we moved in together in April, and it's been, a roller coaster since then, just crazy life things and life changes. And
And
but
another,
like
2 kids, you know.
Yeah, I know, another 2 kids. We bought a house. We had a dog. It's like, it was weird. These manifestations like came about, and I was like, this is like really kind of creepy. But it, you know, it just was like.
But you wanted it. It was like, this is what I want.
And I felt like so strongly that like God was like, this is your path. Like, this is where you need to go.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, like,
what faith.
My life is in, you know, your hands. Like, help me, please, because I don't know what I'm doing with it. And
wow.
I want women, you know, because there's so many women and men, but a lot of women who go through like relationship trauma, and I didn't even know that was a thing. Like, I didn't know what was wrong with me when I was going through what I was going through. Oh. Like, I was like, man, like, I get these thoughts. Like, whenever a thought would come from, like, you know, what happened, like a memory or something, like, I'd get triggered by something, and it would make me spiral. Like, I would just go down these, like, I'm like, oh my gosh, like, I couldn't shut my mind off.
Whoa.
Like, I'd go down this, like dark hole, and I couldn't get out of it, and I was like, what is wrong with me? Like, I don't feel like this is normal. And
and that's scary when you don't realize it. It's like you just think that you're alone in it, where it's like you don't even know like what's happening. All of a sudden you find yourself at the bottom of this hole, and it's like, why am I here? How did I get here? And I don't even know how to get out. Mm-hmm. Was it a counselor that helped you like see what was happening?
I actually had a teacher friend that I was teaching with at the time, and she had gone through some, you know, a traumatic divorce where her husband had cheated on her and stuff. Oh. And she referred me to this place that dealt with relationship trauma.
Interesting.
Or betrayal trauma, I guess is what they call it. I'm like, what is that? So like, I researched betrayal trauma and like all these, you know, like the symptoms of it. I'm like, oh my gosh, that is like what is going on with me. Whoa. And so I found this counselor there, and his name is JR. The place is called Addo Therapy, and I think they have a place in Salt Lake, but the one I went to was in Linden, Utah. And I went like once a week, and like talking through things with him was like really helpful. But the thing that helped the most was called ART therapy.
ART, okay.
Yeah, and it's like,
this isn't EMDR.
It's a form of EMDR, okay. But it dives a little bit deeper. So, you know, it's a rapid eye movement, and it sounds so dumb. Like, when he was first doing it to me, I was like, there's no way this is going to help me. Like, this is so dumb. Like, I'm sitting there following his finger with my eyes as he's asking me these questions, and we're going through these scenarios that are really hard to relive. Like, I had to relive these really traumatic scenarios and, like, talk about them. And
I've done EMDR too. I haven't done the one. What is it called again?
It's called ART.
ART.
Yeah.
I haven't done ART. But the EMDR thing, it seems like it's like, this is so simple. Why would this work?
Yeah.
And if I hadn't have researched like, oh, this is what's used with, you know, PTSD war veterans.
Yes.
And they actually can overcome things. I can tell I like really was like, how does this work? Why does it work? Like, oh, it's letting your brain actually process something traumatic where we don't. Like, in the moment, it's like your brain doesn't want to because it's pain. You know, we're fleeing from that pain. And so do you feel like it worked?
Oh,
this
100%.
Other one. Okay.
Yeah, I did like 4 different sessions of it or whatever, and each session was like an hour. And after the first one, I was like, I don't know if that worked. Like, that was weird. I was like, I've never done anything like that. But it's not like my memory of what happened was gone. You know, it's not like they wiped my memory. It was just when I thought about that, like, specific experience, I didn't feel all the pain or spiral into, like, you know, nothing where I couldn't get out of it.
That's incredible.
It was. I'm like, that was the thing that helped me the most. And like, obviously my spirituality of like really strengthening my relationship with God and relying on him and leading me through where I was supposed to go with my life. But apart from like my spirituality, the ART therapy was the thing that helped me the most. And Justin actually did it too, and was able to process some things that he had gone through. And I was like, and both of us were like, that was like crazy. Like it really helped.
It really
so
worked.
much. It really worked. Yeah. Cause like, you know, even like things that I wasn't there to experience, like Justin having an affair, and while we were separated had, you know, a sexual relationship with another girl. And even though I wasn't there for that, like just the thought of that, like
that happening. Yes.
was so painful. And that was one of the things that I processed, and like even sitting here being able to just like talk about it, you know.
That's what I was going to say. Like you have this like strength about you that I'm really inspired by.
Oh, thank you. That's nice. Just like I don't feel like I could sit here and like be able to just talk about it if I didn't be able to process it and be like, okay, like that was something that happened. It was part of my story. I'm okay. Like, you know, that doesn't define me. Wow. I can still be like a strong woman and like live my life, even though like I'd gone through something that was traumatic to me.
So traumatic.
And I think the hardest part, even now, though, is the effect that it had on my oldest.
Your oldest.
And even just recently, my husband, he still has his suicide note in his car that he wrote. Wow. He just keeps it in there, just kind of like remind him like how low he was, you know.
Like that's where I was at.
And he actually showed it to my son, because he was just like, I just got like this really strong feeling one night. Like me and him were just really bonding. He was asking me questions about like, you know, when his dad didn't live with us for a while. He was asking him questions about that, and I don't remember where I was. I was upstairs doing something with one of the other kids, and I didn't know this conversation was going on. And I came downstairs and I was like, where are they? And they were just in the garage, you know, in his car. And he was showing him this note that he wrote to him.
Oh my gosh.
Just talking about, you know, like that time and how hard it was, and how, you know, he's never going to leave him ever again, because I feel like, especially with my husband, my oldest has like separation anxiety with him. And it's gotten worse, which has kind of been interesting the past like couple months. Because my husband, Justin, he started this business. I don't know if you know anything about his business, but it's called Here Brotherhood. And it's a place for men who, well, all men really, but, you know, men who like go through like really hard things, or just need like a place to like talk to other men. And
that is really cool.
They have this app, and that has like over 1,000 members on it, that like they've created this community for men to just join and be able to talk and
to have encourage each other for them. Wow.
Yeah, and it's just bringing light to like men's mental health.
Wow.
And
which is so needed.
Oh, yeah.
So needed.
It is. And it all kind of stemmed from, you know, like Justin meeting this other guy, his name's John Moore, on LinkedIn, and they kind of created, you know, this relationship, and he was like, I want this business and to start, and Justin was like, awesome, like, we'll be a part of it. And it kind of just exploded from there, but
wow,
that's what he's doing right now. And they hold events. They just went to one in Arizona like a week ago, and he was gone for 2 nights. And yeah, my oldest has a hard time. He's like, where's dad? Like, when is dad coming back? Or like, he's always gone, or like, you know, and it's like, he's not always gone. He actually works at home, you know.
He's here, but he still has that, yeah.
Yeah,
that,
if I'm gone, like, he doesn't matter.
It's fine.
He doesn't care. But if he's gone, he notices.
It's very
like,
clear.
when is he going to be back? And, you know, at nighttime when he's going to go to bed, he's cried, or like, I want to talk to dad. Or I'm like, well, he's on the airplane right now. He can't talk, or, you know. So that's been really hard to see, like, the after effects even years later on him. And so just trying to figure out, like, how do we help him understand
and
what happened.
It's so hard for, like, you know, a kid that age, and like you it's almost like you could say all the right things, but like even developmentally, you know, they can't, I'm sure, process, you know, what's happened.
Yeah.
And so I'm sure that is just,
Yeah.
it's just
And
so
you
hard
know,
at that
when
age.
you're going through a really hard time in your relationship and you have kids, you still have to show up for and take care of. It's like, I don't, I've tried my best.
How did you do that? How did you?
I couldn't have done it without my parents and my family. Honestly, like, there's no way. Like, if I was by myself, like so many women are that have to just like be by themselves and raise their kids. I'm like, I don't know. I don't know if I would have been able to make it like without my support system, because they just helped me so much. Like, I remember very vividly one day, I don't remember like exactly what brought on my like crying episode that I had. I was in the car and I just started bawling, and I pulled into my parents' garage and I got out and I was just like, can you take my kids to my mom? And I was like, I just need to calm down. And I, you know, went and had my little cry session for a minute and just like pulled myself together and was like, hey, I need to be there for my kids now. Like,
Wow.
you know, and just.
Wow, what strength, where it's like, okay, I did it, and then you turn right back around and it's like.
Well, yeah, I'm like, I can't just like sit here and wallow and melt into my misery. Like, I have my children who need me, and it's not like I was trying to hide that I was sad, you know, but I didn't want
something that painful. It's like, how can you even like.
I didn't want them to see that I was like hurting,
Right,
because I didn't know how to explain it to them.
Yeah.
And it's not like I was trying to be all sneaky or whatever, you know, like.
Yeah.
But I didn't want them to know that I was sad. I wanted to still have them be happy and enjoy being with them and showing them that I, you know, wanted to be with them. And
Right.
And I remember my mom, one of my sisters, she dropped out of high school and left to Montana with her boyfriend. And my mom was devastated. Like, but when I was younger, I don't really remember like seeing my mom devastated. But to her, she's like, I would go in my closet and just cry and cry and cry.
Oh.
And she's like, some days I didn't want to get out of bed. And so she was like, I just, not to like toot my own horn or anything, but she was like, I don't know how you're like doing this. She's like, I don't know how you're getting up every morning and like
keep going.
Yeah, with your life. And I was just like, I don't know, like I have a job, like I have to go and teach, and I have my kids. Like, I can't just like lay in bed and be like, oh, poor me, like my life is falling apart, you know.
Wow.
Like, even though I wanted to some days, I'm like, I don't want to get up and do anything.
Whoa.
But
that's incredible that you had that resiliency, because there are some people where it's like, I'm just going to give up.
Yeah.
You know?
And
like, I'm just going to give up. And for you, you're like, no, I'm not. I'm still going to show up.
Yeah.
I'm still going to show up as a mom. I'm still going to show up in my kids' lives. I'm still going to be there for them.
It's hard.
That's amazing.
It's so hard. And, you know, for those who feel like they can't, like, there's no judgment there at all, because it's hard when you're going through any kind of hard trial, you know,
Right.
whatever it is. It's like, I don't know. I feel like I just, during that time, looking back, I'm like, I had strength of angels, honestly. Like, there's like, I just felt like I had help from my earthly side and my heavenly side coming together to like help me, because
Like rallying around
I don't
you.
know how I got through like
Seriously.
that time. It just was, and it was hard when my whole family would get together, you know, especially during the holidays, and everyone's with their kids and their husbands
and their spouses
and I'm like, I'm alone. I'm like, Christmas Eve, my kids went with my husband and his family, and all of my siblings were with me with their kids, and I'm there with husbandless and kidless, and I had to step away for a moment and cry, because I was like, my life is like not what I wanted, you know. And
so hard.
But I still was so grateful that I had my family, you know, there.
They were there because they were being a good support. You know, it's just hard when you're like in the thick of that situation.
It is. And then it's weird because you can be surrounded by everyone, all these people that you love, but feel so lonely. Like, I just was like, I just feel so lonely. Like, not that I have to have a husband to feel, you know, like loved and not lonely or whatever, but I felt like,
It's like you could be surrounded by all these people and still just feel that deep pain.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's more people than we know that feel that way.
Yeah.
That are truly just silently suffering.
Oh, for sure.
And we don't know.
Yeah. And it's crazy when me and Justin decided to kind of like open up about our story. And it's very scary being vulnerable, you know? It's like, oh, people are going to like judge us or like judge Justin or think he's a terrible person because of what he did and whatever. But we've gotten nothing but like love and people there's so many people who can relate. Not that their story is exactly the same, but they can relate in some way. And I've had so many people reach out to me, like even friends from high school that's like, I have gone through this, like this is what I'm going through right now.
And they're reaching out to you.
Yeah, and they're reaching out to me and I'm like, man, I'm like, first of all, you're brave for like reaching out to someone that you haven't talked to in a long time.
Yes.
And, you know, people on LinkedIn have reached out to me that like this complete stranger that's like, this is my story and this is what I'm going through. And I'm like, man, like,
and that
that's
you
just...
can like be there, like be someone that's like, I went through this.
Yeah, and it's been kind of cool to just be like, this person wants to reach out to me and because they can relate and they feel like I have something that can help them, you know, not that I don't know if I have, but...
But you've obviously gone through all of this and you have ended up on the other side. I mean, that's incredible. As you're talking all about this, my mind is just like deeply wanting to understand your process of forgiveness.
Oh.
I just like, how did you...
You know what? My dad... Now I'm gonna like get all emotional now. My dad has been the ultimate like example of forgiveness my whole life. And I don't know how. Like I've seen things with like my sisters with, you know, 2 of them have been divorced a couple of times and to, you know, men that weren't like super great. And here he is having, if they would come around, having no, you know, show no hard feelings towards them. Just anyone that has kind of ever done him wrong. I have never seen my dad treat them horribly. Like he just kind of is able to show love so easily towards anybody. And I'm just like, how do you do that? Like, I don't know. But then Justin's like, you're that way. Like, you don't hold grudges. And I'm like, I don't, I guess. I'm like, I don't know why. I don't know how. It's just huge. It just hurts more to hold on to anger and like, you know, like you can't move on. You can't move forward if you have this grudge and this anger that you're holding on to. No bridges can be built again. It's just...
And your heart can't heal.
Yeah.
When you're just holding on to that pain.
No, it can't. And so I feel like I was able to just kind of give all my hurt to, you know, my Savior, Jesus Christ, and just be like I was kneeling by my bed one night, physically, like, handing my hands in prayer to him, just be like, please take this, all of this hurt, please take it from me, and just let me sleep tonight, like, just tonight, and let me move on from this, and I feel like that whole process of everything that I did to heal myself really got me to the point of being able to forgive Justin and for how much he hurt me, you know. And I don't know, I feel like we wouldn't be where we are today if I still was holding anger towards him. Like, yeah, like I said, you know, your heart can't heal. You can't move forward.
You can't.
And I feel like there's just been a lot of examples to me in my life of like seeing people forgive and I'm like, I just want to be like that, you know? And I feel like there's no timetable of forgiveness or whatever, and I feel like everyone's different with that. But even Justin's dad, he was married before, and he had a little boy and a little girl, and they were driving in their truck, you know, before they had seatbelts. There was like that one
back.
bench in the front, and he had his little baby daughter and his 2-year-old son and his wife, and they're driving on the freeway, and this truck had a trailer that came unhitched and smashed into their truck.
What?
And his wife and his son died, and he got flown through the windshield, and his baby girl survived and him. And
Oh my
I remember him telling the story of he actually, and I can't remember if he went to the guy's house, but he went and physically told him, like, I forgive you, you know. And I'm like, how?
Wow.
To me, seeing that, I'm like, how can you forgive that? Where your family, half your
Literally
family's gone.
Gone.
Like, you can't get them back. Like, so I just feel like there's been so many people in my family and Justin's family where I've seen such sad, terrible things happen to, and I'm like, how can you
do that? And yet
let
they
go of
did.
that hurt?
Like,
Yeah.
They were able to forgive and to keep going.
Yeah. And I feel like you have to have an understanding of like Christ to be even able to get to that point, because he's the ultimate forgiver, you know?
Right.
And
you can get to a certain point, I feel like, without Christ. But to truly have it 100% healed,
yeah.
it takes a Savior who's willing to take it all.
Yeah. Because, yeah, I think part of forgiveness is letting go of the hurt, the anger, the whatever you're holding on to.
Which doesn't mean you're condoning it. You're not condoning it or saying it's okay. And I think that's what people don't realize.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's like, but if I forgive them, then I'm telling them that it's okay. It's like, no, forgiveness is about freeing you.
Yes.
Forgiveness is, I feel like forgiveness is another word of freedom.
Yes.
Like, you're freeing yourself.
I totally agree with that. Yeah. Because it is freeing. Well, yeah, when you're holding on to, you know, your grudges, you're like trapped in this little, prison.
Yeah.
That you're holding yourself hostage. And, you know, I think a lot of people don't understand that. They blame the other person. It's their fault. But yeah, you can move on from it. And
you can. That reminded me when you said that, like, prison. One of my favorite quotes on forgiveness is to set a prisoner free and realize the prisoner was you.
Ooh, I like that.
That is it. Like, that's
Yeah.
it. It's like, it's being able to become free again from that pain.
That is so true. Yeah.
Wow. And to be able to see you go through such insanely deep amount of hurt, and to like see you in front of me with this like smiling face, like, it like makes me want to cry, to be like, look what like women are capable of. Look what you've been able to do as like a woman of strength that, you know, is like ready to have her 4th baby, and like someone on the street would have no idea what you've gone through in your life.
Yeah. And you know, I mean, isn't everyone like that? It's like, you see someone, you have no idea what they're even currently going through or have gone through. It's so, I just feel like our world is like stripped of kindness right now. Like, everyone is just, there's so many mean things going on, and just people hurting other people, and it's sad to see, especially on social media, you know, where people can hide behind their screens and say whatever they want. And it's like, why can't we just be kind? Like, you have no idea what someone is going through. Like, no idea. Like, I had so many people that had no idea exactly what I was going through. They could just tell something was going on. And they reached out in kindness. And, like, that meant the world to me.
Wow.
Like, it just was, it was so uplifting. And I feel like we need more
of
of
that.
that.
I feel like that is, you hear the saying like hurt people.
Yeah.
I think that is a very natural cycle. That is sadly like the default cycle. And I feel like true Christianity is to be able to break that cycle and to be hurt and to not choose to hurt another person.
Yeah.
And to not act out in rage or anger, all of these things that feel so natural when you are physically hurting, and so to be able to like see you be able to go through that and not, there's those deep painful emotions. I'm sure that it could have been so easy to just like lash out in that like anger and bitterness and everything. And it's amazing to see. Of course you said like, yeah, you were angry, but there's lots of things I'm sure that you could have done that could have, shown your anger, and yet you were able to go through that and to do that in such a honorary way. I think that's really incredible.
Thank you. I feel like my example of that was my teacher friend that I was working with, because she still had this relationship with her ex-husband that was positive. And I remember her telling me that she never ever wanted to say anything bad to her kids about her ex-husband.
Wow.
Because she didn't want to skew their view of their dad.
Wow.
Based
If
off of what he did to her.
every person understood that, divorces and kids would turn out so much better.
I know. And I'm like, I am so glad she gave me that advice, because I'm like, I could have been like, your dad did this, and this is why I'm crying, because of your dad. Like,
Yeah.
And I just, to my kids, their dad was their hero. Like, why would I want to skew that for them?
And they
didn't do anything.
Heroes fall. Like, there's no perfect hero out there.
No, and he didn't do anything to them.
Right.
Like, the hurt was, it was mine, and I didn't want to push that onto them. And, he's still young, he's 5, and I had a 1-year-old, and so my 1-year-old obviously didn't know what was going on, but, my 5-year-old at the time, I just didn't, I even texted my family, and I was like, if you're going to talk about, not that my family was constantly talking about what was going on, but I'm like, if you're going to talk about what is going on with me and Justin, and it's negative, I was like, please talk about it away from your kids, so that your kids don't talk about it to my kids.
Smart. Where it's like, oh, and then cousins are talking, and then
it's like, oh, I heard your dad did this, or whatever, and I was like, I don't want anything getting back to my kids that will like skew their view of their dad.
Wow.
Because as kids get older, they learn on their own, and they see on their own who their parents are. And I'm like, if Justin wants to live this way and whatever, then my kids will see it someday.
They'll see it for themselves if that's the way
they can get their own idea of their dad that was not from me or anybody else. It was their own. And my teacher friend, her kids are older now, and she was like, yeah, they grew up to see that their dad, did these certain things that weren't great. And sometimes they were just like, I don't know if I want to go over to dad's, which is obviously sad.
But they're making that choice.
But they're making that choice
based off
of what they have seen, their dad portray, or mom or whoever it is. But I think they should be able to make that own decision for themselves and not be poisoned by a parent that has hard feelings towards that other parent.
And in everything that you've said, it just has made me realize this beautiful idea of people can change.
Oh yeah.
And to be able to like see that and see that you gave him that chance and that space and that ability, and you didn't taint your kids, to where now he has changed so much. And what if you did say all those things and yet you have forgiven? And would your kids have understood how to forgive?
Yeah.
It's like, it was incredibly mature of you to be able to rise to that emotional level, to like see it in that way. Because I know there's a lot of people that don't do that, and there's super hard feelings, but that's incredible that you were able to like see the situation and see that they can have that.
Well, I wish I could take all the credit for it, but I mean, I had an amazing example to look to, I'm like, that's what I want this situation to look like. I don't want all of the hate and the hard feelings, and I don't want that because that turns so ugly.
It does, and it's already hard, and when we have all of those feelings, it just turns out worse. It doesn't become better, right? When we are like, the anger turns into speaking so badly about somebody else. It's like that's not elevating anybody. That's not elevating ourselves or anybody else or the situation or anything,
No, and it just causes more anger to build up,
right.
And that you can't let go of.
Yeah.
And that's
wow,
hard to forgive at that point.
Yes. So as we've heard this incredible journey that you've been on, and the resiliency that you've had, and the people that have rallied around you, and the struggles, and yet the beauty that you have now been able to create as you have a family and a husband, and that you've been able to forgive and come together. I just want to ask you, what encouragement would you give these women that are watching this right now, that may or may not be going through the same thing, but are going through incredibly, potentially hard struggles in life? What do you want to say to them?
Well, first, what I want to say is, my story is not their story. And I've had a hard time sometimes with like women reaching out to me, and talk to Justin where I'm like, what if they think that because we were able to work it out, that's what they should expect? Like, right. And I'm like, I don't want to give anyone any false hope of like, right. Like, you can totally work it out. It's going to work out for you and the same way as me, and
that is true though, because it's like, you do have such a unique story.
Yes.
And it's like, not everybody is obviously going to like, oh, it's going to work out for everybody, Mm-hmm. But you can still, like, you still went through what you did. And how can you help these women not go through as in like go back to the person, but go through as in just help them make it through that, like the bottom of the bottom, like how can you help pull them up?
I think, I'm obviously like very religious. And for me, that turning to my Savior Jesus Christ was my strength. That's where I gathered my strength. And I feel like whatever gives you that hope, that strength, like lean into that as much as you can, and find the people that are going to rally around you and support you in, your decisions. And because that's really what helped me the most get out of that, like, my darkest, loneliest moments where I'm by myself in my room crying and just like begging God to just take away the pain. And I feel like my relationship with him at that time, I really felt like he was just like there with me a lot. And it's kind of hard when you come out of like a trial, when you're like seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, I could kind of feel, not that God was leaving me, but that he was like, you're okay now. Wow. I'm going to kind of like step back because you're okay now.
Yeah.
And I could like physically kind of like feel that. And I was just like, no, like come back, But
like
I feel
he
like
was there.
Yeah.
Right there.
Yeah. Like you. I really just felt that so strongly. And I feel like I didn't really notice how strong it was until I was like, turning point of like getting my family back together and like, coming out of it all. But that's kind of the thing is like, I just feel like everyone kind of has, and if you don't have anything that kind of gives you hope, like maybe find Christ, find something that is going to give you that strength, because there's always, you know, something out there for everyone to lean into and to gather strength from.
And we're not meant to do it alone.
No, that's so lonely. Like, yeah, we're not meant to do it alone. And that's
exactly why I feel like I wanted to have something like this, a podcast like this, to help women feel that they are not alone. They're not.
No.
We're here. We're doing this together. We're moms. And we're moms that care about other moms. Moms like you that will show up on a night like this and be willing to be this vulnerable and share with other women that there's hope. There's hope in healing, you know, to be able to heal and go through some really incredibly hard, difficult things as a mom and still make it through it all.
Yeah. Yeah, you can. It's possible, you know. It's not saying that I'm like 100% like, I am so much better now, you know, whatever, but it's, yeah, there's always light at the end of the tunnel, and we don't know when that is going to come, but it does. Always. It always does come.
Wow.
And, you know, everyone's timeline is different for that, but if you can just like, and you know what, I feel like even during dark times, you can still find light in those times. And for me, my light was my kids. Like, just the hugs and the kisses. And even though it was like a really hard time to go through, I have, you know, videos and pictures and whatever and memories of times that we were able to spend together, you know, building a relationship with them and showing them my love, even though it was really hard. But I still cherish those moments too, even though it was in the midst of like darkness, you know. Wow. So you can still find light in the darkness for sure.
If you know where to look.
Yeah, if you know where to look.
I totally believe that. I totally believe that. Well, thank you. This has been an amazing experience. Thank you for being here and being vulnerable, and I want you to feel loved and that you are incredible. I've been incredibly inspired sitting here and just listening to your strength and your perspectives and your ability to choose good choices in your life. Even though it was so hard, it probably wasn't easy to make a lot of the choices that you did, and you did it because you had the courage to keep going, and I'm really impressed with that. So thank you for being here tonight. You've been amazing. It was a wonderful night. Thank you.